The Mutt Dawgs recently just saw Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. After the success of the first Aquaman and knowing the Lost Kingdom is going to be the last of the DC Snyderverse, I didn't have too much expectations heading into this. Unfortunately, even with low expectations, I have to say the Lost Kingdom wasn't that good. There isn't much of a story behind it. Let's start off with the positive aspects of the movie. The action sequences for the most part were well done. The underwater scenes were cartoonish, colorful and cool. Particularly the scene where Atlantis is under attack by Black Manta's crew. Explosions and destruction galore. Now onto the main man himself. Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa. He does a fine job. He's loud, brash and charismatic. Mr. Momoa certainly fits the role exceptionally well. He is sexy and easy on the eyes for the ladies. He wasn't the main problem though. The biggest problem is the main villain. David Kane, otherwise known as Black Manta. He just wasn't all that compelling. His only motive was getting revenge for his father's death from the first Aquaman. Problem is, both David Kane and his dad were murderous thugs already. In the first movie, David and his father charge into a submarine and kill a bunch of innocent sailor boys. So when David's dad was trapped under the steel pipe and David pleads with Aquaman to save his dad, Aquaman has no reason to help either of them and leaves them to drown. David Kane's hatred for Aquaman is not all that justified, hence I felt no sympathy for his plight. We can never side with David in either Aquaman or the Lost Kingdom. Or unless you decide to. I certainly did not. I feel that in these sort of superhero movies, the movie is only as good as the villain is. If the villain sucks, then the whole movie will suck regardless of how good the protagonists are. The first Aquaman was better because was a far more interesting and complex main villain. In order to save the world, Aquaman needed to fight and dethrone his brother. Aquaman was conflicted as he didn't want to fight or take the throne as King of Atlantis. The Lost Kingdom had no internal conflict amongst the characters. David Kane was one-dimensional with no depth. That's why the movie kind of sucked. I was a bit surprised how the movie wasn't all that good because James Wan is a pretty high-quality director who did a fantastic job in the first Aquaman. I think James tried too hard to make the movie funny, like Taika Waititi did for Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder. It just seems like James didn't put all his heart into the Lost Kingdom, and was more interested in collecting a final paycheck from DC Studios. Perhaps James should stick to doing what he does best. Horror movies. A few other mentions. This marine biologist guy, Dr. Stephen Shin, played by Randall Park. He kept popping in and out of the movie and I simply didn't care for him. I wish David Kane killed him off much earlier. And Mera, played by Amber Heard. She got a fair bit of screen time, while at the same time she felt non-existent throughout, as if the movie would have felt almost the same if she was never there. She appears sporadically every now and then, to say a few lines or to shoot her powerful water blast, and disappears for long durations. Another thing that was completely unrealistic. If it was real life, Jake the Muss would have beaten up a lot of the bad guys instead of just babysitting. And one final mention. There were far too many moments where characters were about to be stabbed or smashed to death, only for them to be saved at the very last moment. It's obvious that DC Studios, James Wan and all the scriptwriters were out of ideas. And as for the Lost Kingdom itself? What Lost Kingdom? I didn't see this Lost Kingdom, totally lost on me. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Well, that's all we have time for. A rather disappointing end to the DC Studios Snyderverse of movies that all started back in 2013 with Man of Steel. It's clear to see from the Lost Kingdom that DC Studios want to end the Snyderverse as soon as possible, so they can reboot everything. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Goodbye.